it's very obvious, I mean, from all the science that's accumulating, that this largely plant-based diet is optimal for our microbes because it provides them with the fuel that they need and provides them with compounds that they turn into anti-inflammatory substances. So if you want to increase the anti-inflammatory potential of your or capacity of your body, it's the plant-based food, it's the fiber.
With the microbiome, then, obviously a huge impact on your mental health, but also your physical health, both negatively in terms of likelihood of obesity and the impact it might have on your metabolism, but also a hugely positive potential in terms of, as you said, the endurance capabilities and other things. How can someone then begin to take the steps to, optimize is a phrase that gets used a lot in health and fitness at the moment, but how can someone begin to make some positive changes to their microbiome? I'm thinking, the TV ads about the probiotics or the prebiotics in your yogurt or your milk. I mean, how effective are they? How much do we have control over the health of our microbiome? And can lifestyle interventions or supplementary interventions really make a significant difference? Or are we stuck with the microbiome that we've got?
So my personal view, and being a scientist, my views change with evidence. So if I see evidence, I change my views. I won't stick to it. I don't have a financial investment in sticking with a certain hypothesis. I think we can do a lot. People can do a lot about it. I mean, lifestyle changes are very effective if maintained on a regular basis, not for a month, or not doing a detox or a cleansing for a week. I mean, those things are useless really in terms of your overall health. But by persistent lifestyle changes, I think we can do a lot. And these lifestyle changes, I mean, they're simple. I mean, like it's not it's not rocket science. But now
Is it the standard things that a lot of experts would say when someone wants to improve their health? Is it regular exercise? Is it a balanced diet, minimizing sugar intake and alcohol? Is it prioritizing sleep? Is it managing stress? Am I on the right track? Is it the same kind of big picture things that we would expect it to be? There's no kind of sexy answer. It's the basics.
That's yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case. Unfortunately for a scientist to say, "Oh, we're going to have these novel compounds and they're going to change your life overnight." And I mean, even with these new medications for obesity, this GLP-1 agonists, we don't know what the long-term effect is to interfere with that elaborate brain-gut microbiome system. I wouldn't be surprised if they work for a while, and then definitely if you stop giving yourself these injections, you develop this yo-yo effect that then you regain the weight even beyond your original weight. So we don't have something that we could say is you take a medication or do something and that will take care of the problem. You have to do it the hard way. And quite a few people, particularly amongst younger people, make these choices about healthier lifestyles. Diet, in some ways, I would say, would be what we know the most, because we know, what our microbes thrive on, which is, so we always known that fruits and vegetables are the healthiest diet, but there's still these culture wars between the keto people and it's very obvious, I mean, from all the science that's accumulating, that this largely plant-based diet is optimal for our microbes because it provides them with the fuel that they need and provides them with compounds that they turn into anti-inflammatory substances. So if you want to increase the anti-inflammatory potential of your or capacity of your body, it's the plant-based food, it's the fiber, and it's another group of these large molecules, the polyphenols that's in many fruits and vegetables. So
long alongside the high fiber food, the fruits and the veg you've mentioned, what are the other things that people should be prioritizing in their diet? And then what are the things that we should be minimizing if we want to improve the health of our gut microbiome?
Yeah, so minimizing or eliminating is definitely sugar, and not just the sugar that you add to it, but also the hidden sugar, like the high fructose corn syrup that's virtually in every processed food that you buy, from ketchup to any
Mhm.
sauce, any salad dressing is packed with these. It may not taste sweet, but it is converted into sugar. So that's one thing. Eliminate sugar. Eliminate or minimize ultra processed food. You can't you can't eliminate processed foods, because almost everything that we eat nowadays is processed. From yogurt is a processed food. In some ways, cooking is processing of food. So it's the ultra processed. You add so many chemical ingredients that what I've seen recently on a little bag of pretzels that are handed out on the airplane is these tiny pretzels. On the bag there was a list of ingredients that are in these pretzels. There must have been 50 different ingredients, chemicals that I've never even heard before. So that's the classic example of ultra processed foods. So eliminate, or try to eliminate those, will get you a long way. If it gets to meat, definitely you should increase the amount of, or have a regular intake of seafood, particularly certain types. If you also want to think environmentally, in sustainability, shellfish and small fish like sardines and mackerel are the ones that give you the biggest health benefit, for your brain health, and also have the lowest impact on environmental health. In terms of, if you go to poultry, yeah, a small amount of poultry, ideally organically raised, without all the antibiotics and the kind of so, like, all these cheap versions of meat products that you can buy. They're produced with, um, in a way that's unhealthy for you, and bad for the environment, as you can almost say. So
What about red meat? Because red meat, obviously, the World Health Organization has published extensively on red meat, on colorectal cancer incidents and other problems. But it seems to me, from my purely amateur point of view, of course, that there's a big distinction between an organic grass-fed beef steak, for instance, and a tin of hot dogs you can buy off the shelf. What is your understanding and your research around red meat in terms of people's
yeah, I
optimal
mean,
diet?
I personally haven't done any research on that area, but I've been following the literature, and obviously there is a culture war going on. It's um, and now we have this plant-based meats, meat substitutes, which is a whole other story. Um, yes, there's evidence that grass-fed beef has a higher amount of, a higher ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, so the beneficial fatty acids that are good for your brain. Um, I think there's some studies that show that excessive meat consumption increases the risk of colon cancer, and could play a big role in this. But then, if you look at countries that have some of the highest healthy beef consumption, you don't really see these huge variations. And if you compare them to the US, it's always difficult. Like, there's relatively small studies. If you look at the big picture, you don't get such a clear answer. For me personally, I've totally weaned myself off red meat for a couple of reasons. One is there's this possibility that it may have a negative effect on your overall health. The second one, for me, probably equally important, is the environmental impact of this beef production, which is the major cause of deforestation, not just to make land for these cattle to graze, but also for now the mass production of corn and soybeans shipped to China for feeding or producing red meat. So that impact is enormous. And the third thing, for ethical reasons, I just personally, don't like the whole thing around what happens to these animals before you get that piece of meat on your plate. So I would say, if you reduce the amount of red meat and stick primarily with grass-fed beef, if you can afford this, rather than eating a cheap piece of beef and focusing on once a week having a grass-fed, more expensive piece of meat, it's probably the best thing you can do if you don't want to do away with red meat.
It sounds very much like a method of eating like our grandparents did, very much based around food that comes from the land. If you're eating whole foods and organic or free rangely reared meat and fish products, then obviously you're going to be putting yourself in a better position. What about alcohol? What do we know in terms of alcohol consumption?
Alcohol, there's also two views on this. Obviously, there's this whole, likable story about the red wine and, having a great time in Italy and Spain and studies on the health benefit of these polyphenols that are contained in red wine. Recent studies have looked at this, and I'm sure there will, with many scientific studies, new studies will come out that sort of refute this. But the evidence is that the alcohol itself, if it's consumed in significant amounts, I think the amount was more than a glass of wine per day, the negative effects of alcohol outweigh any positive effects that are based on these polyphenols that are contained in particularly red wine. In some ways that makes sense. I think many of the health benefits in these Mediterranean countries that have been reported with red wine have to do with the ability of wine to facilitate social interactions. There's very few social interactions in Italy or Sardinia or southern France that do not involve, a glass or two of red wine. So it may well be, and again, my personal view of this, of synthesizing all the information, the regular consumption of a small amount of red wine, could be as little as half a glass in the evening, which relaxes you and facilitates, and you do it with friends, not in front of the TV, is probably health promoting. So that's what I would say.